Kia ora team, welcome back to Big Boys Boxing. I'm Jono, your host. So, I'd like to discuss a little about what's going on with Joseph Parker at present. As many of y'all know, he's only fought once this year. He had a fight scheduled with Derek Chisora on the 26th of October, but under doctor's instructions, Joseph Parker wasn't allowed to fight and had to pull out due to a suspected spider bite. If you haven't seen it already, it's legit on Boxing Social. There's an interview with Joseph Parker and he shows the big hole in his leg where he got poisoned by the spider. But anyways, there is an article I will leave in the description from Boxing Scene. It's got some quotes from David Higgins, Joseph Parker himself, and what's going on there. So Joseph has been pressing for a rescheduled fight against Derek Chisora pretty much ever since Derek Chisora knocked out the late replacement in David Price and moved on. However, Derek Chisora and his manager David Haye have got other ideas at present. It seems they're trying to chase a title shot, and the best way to do that, as far as they're concerned, is to fight Alexander Usyk, if possible. Now, Alexander Usyk initially had been saying that he doesn't want any other fights until he gets his shot against the WBO champion, but as of late, his team have expressed some interest in the possible fight against Derek Chisora, which I find quite interesting. Why are they showing interest? Man, they must have been offered a huge amount of money, because Derek Chisora is a pressure fighter. He's a possible threat to Usyk. However, he doesn't offer a ranking. It's not a world title. And that's what they were talking about prior to David Haye and Eddie Hearn getting in their ear. I believe they've been convinced to a degree that maybe they can make enough money off a fight against Derek Chisora for it to be of interest. Now, many are assuming that Alexander Usyk's mandatory position would be up for grabs in that fight. I'm not 100% sure about that myself. I've had a look through the rules about a super champion from another weight getting the mandatory position, and it doesn't say anything about if he fights somebody else in the new division he's fighting in and loses, does he lose his mandatory position to that fighter? Not sure. I mean, if it was a normal heavyweight who'd fought for a mandatory position, I'd imagine every fight from then on, after obtaining that mandatory position, would be a final eliminator. If someone beats you, the person who beats you gets the mando. But I'm not so sure about this other way of obtaining the mandatory position. I just don't know. So it'll come out if the fight gets made. However, if it doesn't, then Derek Chisora's best opportunity to fight somebody of note and get closer to a title shot is definitely Joseph Parker. So I wouldn't mind the Derek Chisora fight for Joseph Parker whatsoever. But there are a few different things that could happen for Parker. There are other possible options if certain things happen. Like if the winner of Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua, who holds the WBO belt, fights the IBF mandatory next in Kubrat Pulev, it's quite possible that the WBO belt could be stripped from them. And Alexander Usyk, being the WBO mandatory, would definitely be fighting for a vacant belt there. The rankings as they stand, Alexander Usyk at number 1, obviously, being the mandatory. Tyson Fury at number 2, who's busy with a February rematch with Deontay Wilder or the WBC belt holder at the time, whoever that may be. There is Anthony Joshua at number 3. He's in the fight, so if he loses, he'll drop down lower. If Andy Ruiz wins, it's possible that if Anthony Joshua wins, it's possible Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua could swap places. So Andy Ruiz could be at number 3, but I'm not so sure if he'll be available for a fight early next year. And that leaves Joseph Parker at number 4, so it is possible he could get the call up to fight for a vacant belt if it does get vacated. And there is another opportunity that's popped up in the last sort of 24 hours. Joseph Parker was talking on Twitter to somebody about the Derek Chisora possible fight and Dillian Whyte running from a rematch. Dillian Whyte saw this and said, anytime, anywhere, mate. Joseph replied with 100 and let's make it happen. So I found this interesting as well, because the first time Joseph Parker and Dillian Whyte fight, there was a big controversy about a head clash. I think it was in the third round, can't remember which one. It's not relevant anyway. But there was a big head clash, and Joseph Parker went down. But the referee, for some reason, didn't see the heads come together whatsoever. There was a left hook thrown almost simultaneously from Dillian Whyte, which landed, but the head clash was definitely the one that did the damage, right behind the ear in the temple, or in front of the ear in the temple. So he was concussed, didn't get any time to recover, and wasn't himself for the next 3 rounds. Prior to that head clash, he was outboxing Dillian comfortably. But it's still a loss. I'm not going to argue the loss. It's just there was some controversy in there, and I thought it was grounds for a rematch. Not necessarily immediately, but sometime down the track. But Dillian and his coach were both adamant that they've beaten Joseph Parker. There's no need for us to fight him again, so let's move on. But now, with Dillian Whyte's situation, with his adverse findings, UKAD taking forever and a day to come up with any kind of resolution, and Dillian Whyte's interim championship and mandatory status with the WBC being suspended, kind of changed the game for him a little bit, I think. Not only because of the status suspension, but also because even if he does get cleared by UKAD in the next 6 months, he still won't be mandated to fight the WBC champion until February 2021. So there's a whole lot of time there where he is still allowed to fight anywhere on the planet, no problem. But he can't get his title shot at the WBC. So why not make some money? There aren't a lot of big money fights out there at the moment. A lot of the top guys are busy. I mean, Wilder's busy with Ortiz, and then he's going to be busy with Fury. So Fury's also busy with Wilder. Joshua and Ruiz are busy. There's a few unbeaten guys coming up that haven't faced the top guys yet, but they haven't got the big names yet. Joseph Parker is a logical choice for Dillian Whyte to fight. He's a former world champion. He has a profile in the UK. People know who he is because he was a former champion. People know what kind of boxer he is. And the guys who would watch Dillian Whyte would have enjoyed the fight that he had against Joseph Parker the first time around. So why not? I mean, it's a main event. It's a pay-per-view main event. Last time it was a pay-per-view main event, and it did over 400,000 buys in the UK alone. So I would love the fight to happen. It's a rematch that would sort some controversy, provided we get a referee who keeps his eyes open this time. And yeah, it's a fight I want to see. I thoroughly enjoyed the fight the first time around, even though my countryman Joseph Parker lost. I still thoroughly enjoyed the fight. Competitive fights are what I'm all about. That's what I love about boxing. So yeah, like I say, there's a few things that could happen there with Parker. I'm happy with the Derek Chisora fight if that happens. I'm happy with the Alexander Usyk fight in sort of February-ish if that happens. But most of all, I'd be most excited about a Dillian Whyte Joseph Parker rematch. So, like I say, there's an article that I will leave in the description from Boxing Scene with quotes from Higgins and Parker about finding out in the next week or so what's going to happen. They're putting pressure on Eddie Hearn. They need to keep pressuring him. He's their promoter now, so find him a fight, Eddie. You signed him to Matchroom for 3 fights at the beginning of the year, and Joe's had 1 fight this year. 2 fights would have been average, but 1 fight is the least active Joseph has been in his entire career as a professional. Dude needs to get moving. He's 27 years old. He's only going to be fighting for another 4 years maximum. So get him moving. You want to make some money out of Joe? Get him a fight. Either end of the year this year or early next year. So let us know what you think is going to happen with Joseph Parker. Who you would like to see him fight the most and why. And what do you reckon? Is Eddie Hearn doing a good enough job with him? Or is he just signed a guy who's already got a profile and hoping to make money off him? But don't forget, if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that. And hit the bell notification for future content notifications. So I'm Jono from Big Boys Boxing, and I'm out. So